How you doing, everybody? Hi, apathy boy. Just not thinking about how much the watch market. Yeah, right. The watch market is in a funny place. Hi, Junior. Hey, how's it going, Clyde? Bugatti. Hi, Bugatti. Tony. Indrajit. Good to see you. How's everything going in India, Indrajit? Getting any better? I hope. Anyway, oh boy, there's so much sort of been going on, mostly in my head. Um, One of the things I bought a watch. I mentioned this, I think, before. I bought a watch. I don't know. I guess a few weeks ago. Um, yeah, maybe. Hi, Ivan. Um, okay, here's sort of my thinking. All right, I bought a watch at an auction and ended up paying $1,000 less than the best price on Chrono 24 for the same watch. Now, and this was after they added all of the stuff to it and everything. I mean, they add the what they call the hammer price, what you actually bid. Then they add 25% to that, and then that they call the premium, which I expected. Then they added another something to that for something else that's sort of a just because premium, and then they added shipping and I don't know, God knows what else. But the point is that surprised me. I mean, when you get something at an auction, that turns out to be the best price. Now, fortunately, in two ways, was I wasn't about to get into a bidding war with anyone. If they wanted to bid against me, a certain point, they can have it. On the other hand, it wasn't exactly something that most people knew about. But what I've been finding is, yeah, that's the one, Clyde. That was it wasn't the Philip, Daniel Roth, Metropolitan. I get those names mixed up too. So I got this, through an auction. Now, the some of the other watches on the auction were pretty interesting. In fact, one in particular that I wanted, but somebody, started bidding against it. And had I been smarter, I would have sort of, been a ninja and jumped on it at the last second, hoping that the guy couldn't get a higher bid in after that. But the thing of it is, yeah, Daniel Dubuis, that's right. Wise guy. Hi, Tim. Hi, Bruce. How you doing? So anyhow, so I started looking around and stuff, and one of the things that's really throwing me, it's sort of interesting, I suppose, is the use of silicon. Now, Patek Philippe started using silicon, I don't know, around 2005 or 6 or something like that. And somebody had said, well, the reason that another thing happened at the same time, they started using the Patek Philippe seal of approval. All right, sort of like the Geneva seal, except it's a Patek Philippe seal. And that, like, come on, I'm gonna give myself the Bill seal, and I'm the only one that can get it. I mean, it's silly in a lot of ways, but. I started looking at, there's a real good article in Pen and Quill about the Geneva seal. And one of the things that they had in there was that there's something about silicon. You're not supposed to put silicon into the ones that get the Geneva seal. And so I imagine that may have been the beef, because at that point, Patek Philippe decided they're going to start using silicon in their escapement, and I think in their balance springs. I don't know, so what about that? Hi, Watch Monkey. Hi, Thomas. How you guys doing? Nepheron, how are you? So I got banned off Archie for disagreeing with Marco. Marco? Who's Marco? I don't know. There are a lot of people, apathy boy, I don't know, so I'm sorry. I don't know who Marco is. If I know Marco Lang, but I hope you're not disagreeing with him because he knows what he's talking about. Um, this morning has your seal of approval. Like that here, we're in for another heat wave. Man, I tell you, the weather has just gone nuts. The people who choose not to believe in global warming, ought to take a look at the temperature. It's really bad. Anyway, so this is what I was want to talk about. So here's sort of the I guess a landscape for watch collectors that seems to be coming up, and that is one where the where we go out and we see a number of things. First of all, the prices of watches are just going up and up and up and up. And this is why when I see what I believe is a very good deal, I'll get it. If it's a watch I want, okay? I mean, like right now. And the reason for that is that if I miss it, I really miss an opportunity. This is how I ended up with the Urban Jurgensen. That thing came out of the blue. And as soon as I saw the price for a new watch, I thought, man, and I wanted an Urban Jurgensen. Now, those are sort of like little pop-ups, you might say, that come along, and so you're looking for a pop-up, but you only got so much money, and you want to do so much. Hey, William. Hi, Watch Habit. And hi, Daniel. And Big Sal, how are you? Buenos dias yourself, man. I think that if this is from Clyde, I think if any brand or reference has any sort of recognition from the collector community or the public at large, prices jump up dramatically now. Yeah, this exactly is the problem, Clyde, is that what we have, I mean, it used to be just a few of us knew about the value of watches like Roger Dubuis, Daniel Roth. You got me goofed up on that one. And some of the others, even Gerald Junta, and we find these things in these different, niches and stuff. And it wasn't that long ago that, most people didn't know F.P. Jorn from, Adams Odd Ox. And so, so now, I mean, now it's an established, really great brand. Here's the problem that at least I found. I mean, it was like a watch I really like is the Sympathy by Roger Dubuis. Well, those things, all of a sudden they disappeared. And the same thing is happening with Daniel Roth. I thought, oh boy, here's sort of all of these watches, and man, just poof, they went and the prices went up, right, just very quickly. And so you're looking around and you're seeing, well, what's what's left that we can afford. And this has led to something very interesting. Two things. One, I'm starting to see more and more watches with silicone. Okay, I don't like that. Now, a lot of people say, oh, well, they're better for this and this and this. And they're right. They are. So's quartz. So smartwatches. You want a really accurate watch, use those. The thing about silicone isn't that it's bad, but it's more of the thing that it's like not what is in a traditional watch. I got my iPhone sitting here. And I'll set my watch. I'll set my watch to my iPhone. So yeah, I know all about accuracy, and I know why they switched to silicon. There's two reasons. There are advantages to silicon. There's no two ways about it. Just like there was to quartz. They were far more accurate, and they still are. So that's not the issue, because if you want to use the accuracy argument, you go back to the 50s or 60s when quartz first came out. So when you start putting that in, and it's like, well, I'd like to adjust it. You can't adjust silicon because it's too brittle, and it will keep more accurate time. It won't it withstands heat and cold better, and so on and so forth. But a good spring like Straumann's spring, or Rolex. Rolex has an excellent spring. The Parachrome, I think it's called the Parachrome Blue. That is, and they're both made of traditional metals. So anyway, so this is sort of where that I'm sort of looking at now. Okay, so that's what's sort of going on. Okay, I call the invasion of the moneyed snatchers. Yeah, right. Hey, Koji, how you doing? I think the pandemic has refocused current collectors and bred a lot of new ones. That's a good point. I think it's also, too, I think, there's been a lot more of the people who are a lot more sophisticated, too. I mean, they're sitting at home with nothing to do. And so, you can pick up a book on watchmaking or start reading more and more about watches and watch collection. And you come out of that a little more sophisticated than, and this is, again, it's easy to pick on Rolex users. They sort of lead with their chin a lot of times. But here's the thing I've noticed about a lot of Rolex fans. They have broadened. They've begun to look at other kinds of watches and appreciate Rolexes still, but also appreciate other watches. And this is, I think, is an important thing, as opposed to, some numbskull, it's like hitting a gong, Rolex, that kind of thing. I think that's less and less. And so I think that's a good thing that they're becoming. But unfortunately, they're also getting wise to some really good watches that, one, are not part of the Holy Trinity, or not part of something that's been very traditional, and what at one time had been more affordable are not so much anymore. Hi, Richard. Okay, what's Koji talking? Sold quickly. I think they had 7 listed just yesterday. Yeah, Koji, what are you talking about? They had about 7 Daniel Ross Chronos. Where were they listed? How come you didn't tell us about it? Koji, you're a day late and a nickel short on that one. Hey, Dominic. The real problem is, where does it stop? Silicon springs, then powder metal bridges, or plastic ones. Why not? I was doing a thing. I was putting together something. I think I was talking about the the Powermatic 80. And the Powermatic 80 has, I forget, it's an ETA, and it has some kind of C0 or CO name to it. And then there turns out to be 3 levels of them. One uses synthetic, and they don't say what the synthetic is. I think it's plastic. The other one uses what they call regular, which is probably a metal, and then the other one uses silicon. Well, silicon's probably the most accurate of the 3 versions of this ETA, but the one that becomes the most interesting is the one with Navavox spring, which is a metal spring that and it's very low on magnetism. In fact, I just ordered a new demagnetizer, because that's commitment to metals that can be magnetized. Hey, Dwayne, how you doing, man? Let's see. Greg, last Saturday went to buy my retirement watch with my son's indie Rolex dealer said 3K premium on Rolex. I said, there's a 3K premium for me today to say no. Bought it on me. Yeah, that's the other thing, man. God, I tell you. Now, if you go into there are 2 places where you can expect a premium. One is Rolex, and the other one is at an auction. At an auction, it's going to be 25%. What they call the hammer price. Your final bid. You say, I'm just going to bid, 4,000. Hammer price is 4,000. The price you pay is 5,000, because there's a 25% premium in there. So anyway, so this is, to me, this is sort of like, well, what do we do next? some other routes are, we go deeper and deeper into vintage, and I just don't like that. I'm not a fan of vintage watches, not because they're not well made. They tend to be sort of mass produced in ways that I don't know. There's something about them. Even my monorector pump, my Beauvais monorector pumps on a Valjoux 84, and it's a nice movement, but they're I don't know, a lot of vintage watches feel tinny. The ones made out of gold, I think, a lot of those have been melted down. This is what I have on is sort of this is what I call a borderline watch. This watch was made between 1999 and about 2013, I think. And then in 2013, they came out with a new version. This is the Vacheron Constantin 72, I think. Yeah, 1972. That was when they won the Prestige de France. Okay, so this is sort of like a near vintage. It's not vintage. And this particular model was made in 2000. On the other hand, it's been discontinued. It's part of a discontinued group. There's another group of watches like that I like a lot. You have watches like the Rolex Prince. You have the whole line of Gondolo. You have the Quadrille from Vacheron Constantin. These are all discontinued, and I think they're good watches. They just weren't as popular as some of the other ones. So I think there's something there. I got another thing too. The Audemars Piguet. What are those oblong ones called? If I got the name of those, I think they still have some left, but I think they're sort of on the way out. Most of the stuff they make are, they want some version of Royal Oak. High time trials. Will some out of favor brands be motivated to create new designs due to the rapid increase in new people getting into the hobby? Ebel, Quorum, Concord. Yeah, hey, time trials. That's a good point. Here's another thing too. A sort of like, I think there may be, it certainly happened with me, sort of a new discovery of ETA movements. Okay, here's sort of the thing behind that. ETAs, before they quit selling them outside of Swatch, have different levels. I mean, you have the plain vanilla one that I think it was the one they found in the Panerai 318. And then you have the Elaboré, and then you have, let me see, 1, 2, there's another one over the Elaboré, and then you jump up to the top. And the top is really, not only do they have a special hairspring, they got a lot of other stuff to them. It makes them a pretty good thing. And then there's the COS sea level. So you have that, and I've noticed that they've been in a lot of watches by some of these top watchmakers. And some of these guys, like Vincent Calabrese, Antoine Prezuzio, I got a feeling they are now being discovered, even though at the base they have an ETA. And they tell you so. I mean, it's like, yeah, we put an ETA in there so we can do all of these cool things with it. And that's sort of one of the routes, I think, that's a possible one is, but and my what was it? Oh, two of my watches in my Christian Vanderclaw and my Metropolitan by Daniel Roth. Both of them had ETA bases. Now the one by Daniel Roth was pretty deep into modifications. I mean, like a whole bunch of modifications. So the only thing that I recognized that was ETA 2892 was the regulator, and I think the balance wheel too. They got very good balance wheels in that. So so this is what I'm trying to say though, is that okay. Here, I mean, like watches. I own watches that I could sell for that are worth more in my house. That's crazy. That's just nuts. And everybody just needs one house, so I don't need to buy another house. Other ones that I like very much have just skyrocketed in prices that I happen to have, which then is tempting, especially ones that I don't use too much, like my Patek Philippe Calatrava. I sold it, and with that, I immediately turned around and bought the Daniel Roth with the money from that. So you have, and a lot of people say, you're nuts, a Patek Philippe for a Daniel Roth, and especially a Daniel Roth with some base of an ETA, even though it said DR 700 /20, it had a base of an ETA. But the more I looked at it, the more I realized that they're ETAs and ETAs. So that's another kind of thing, is that on the one hand, it sounds like, oh, that's sort of a lame excuse for a cheap movement. And on the other hand, it's a recognition that they have different levels to them and prices. But there's another thing, too, that I'm really getting into. Let me see if I have it here. Where did I put it? Here it is. This is something else. This is, I bought, and maybe there's some way to get these. This is a Vaucher movement with let me see if I can fix it. It's got like a little micro rotor, a gold micro rotor, and so forth behind it. Now this thing, I guess the trick would be to find a a really good case to go with it. Whoops, pop it into the case, and have a really nice watch for something that's relatively affordable. And I say relatively, and I'm not kidding when I say relatively. This was about, I forgot what it was. I think they're hard to get, not because they're rare, but rather because you have to buy them in 20, lots of 25. And I was fortunate enough to have, there was some guy I knew who was buying them. I said, hey, buy an extra one, just add it to your group and I'll buy it from you. And he agreed. So that's another route to go, is that we say, okay, we're going to get a really good movement, get a really good case, and get a really good dial, and put them together and have our own watches. I don't know. These are just possibilities. I really have no idea. But now that I have the movement, the same thing with my Soprod A10. The case I got for it was just stupid. I say stupid because it's really hard to put together these blasted little things that hold the case to the movement. The mechanism on that was impossible. They have ones that aren't that hard. Okay, ETA plus modification adds originality plus keeps costs down. Daniel, that is very well put. I agree. I think Hardbring, before he did in-house, Peter Speak, Marin, and that Finnish guy with the crazy moon. Yeah, all of those guys did. See, this is the other thing. I think the reason that ETA got such a bad reputation was that you had companies like IWC, Breitling, Cartier, you name it, and they'd give some phony baloney name to their movement, implying it was in-house. And I think that upset a lot of people. Like I forgot what it was, like a Breitling 22 or something like that. It's got the movement as a B22, and you look up a B22, and it's sitting on top of, one of the ETAs. And so the other thing is ETAs were cheaper to get, period. I mean, they were just cheaper. So if it cost the watchmaker, $1,000 less to use an ETA over, let's say, something either in-house or Vaucher, something like that, why not? And, the bean counters are always looking at the watch works, and what does this guy know? Well, unfortunately for them, we know a lot. and I think that, unfortunately, that gave ETA a bad name. So here's what they came out with. Well, ETAs have really all of these different levels of quality, and we got this higher quality one. That's fine. Why didn't you put that in the write-up when you're talking about your so-called B22 or whatever you're going to call it, and say what we did, a B22 is really an ETA XYZ of this quality, but they didn't. And I think this gave, through no fault of their own, ETA a bad name. Before ETA was bought by Swatch, they were really a top watchmaker, and then they incorporated other top ones like Pazu, Valjoux, Unitas, all of these other companies that were really top watchmakers. And so I hate to sound like I'm giving lame excuses for ETAs, because I'm not. That's not the point. The point is that where there is one of two things: either they use, I mean, why would you use an ETA or any other movement and put it into a watch and put your name on it, unless you've done something really to major modification to it? So you know, on the other hand, Lemania, I think it's Lemania is also owned, I think, was that an ETA? That may have been also owned by Swatch as well. And people say, well, it's got a Lemania. That's a really good one. Well, yeah, but hey, Mike, just woke up. Good morning. How you doing, Mike? Hi, Alexander. You think of Porsche design watches, specifically 1919 date timer. I did a video on Porsche design, and I'm not too sure about them. I'm not a big fan of that particular design. But they're not, I mean, they've got some, they do have some nice ones. I don't know what the 1919 date timer is specifically. Hi, Heider. How you doing? Recently got a case from Ickler, Germany-based, gold-plated, and used it to house a Pezoux skeleton movement. If you're looking quality, you're right. In fact, just yesterday, I was looking at some Ickler cases. They are nice. Hey, Dominic, the Swiss have so many rules. Why not have it mandatory to say base movement? Yeah, Dominic, I'm for that 100%. Here's this: the Swiss are sort of in an interesting place, I think. This is where I see them as. On the one hand, they really want to have quality watches, and so, well, two things about their quality watches. One, a lot of the watch companies there were buying a bunch of cheap parts from China, okay, and they're putting them in their watches and calling them Swiss made. Well, the Swiss said, you know, if we keep that up, Swiss made is not gonna, it's gonna lose its cachet, as it were. So a lot of different funny things happen. Some of these Japanese and Chinese owned companies moved to move their operation to Switzerland. It was sort of all kinds of funny things like that that were going on. I don't know. Let's see. Porsche design watches are a hard pass. If I buy a watch, I want one to be made by a watch company. See, this is something, Watch Monkey. I just want a good movement. I'll put it that way. One of my favorite watches is a Van Cleef and Arpels. And Cleef and Arpels is a very famous jeweler, but they're not known for watchmaking. But on the other hand, if you take a look at all of the winnings at the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie, Van Cleef and Arpels comes up, I don't know, a whole lot of times. Now, what they do, and I think this is also sort of the route that Hermes took, was that they simply use the very best movement makers. The Van Cleef and Arpels that I have, and I won't even try to pronounce it, the time here and time there, heure d'ici et heure d'hier. What they've done is that they've got the very best watchmakers. That's one of the few watches that has a movement that was entirely made by Jean-Marc Viterac. And you know, so to me, that's important, to have a really good watchmaker. And Harry Winston's a jeweler, and they've got all kinds of really great ones. Now, where that's not done, either by one who calls himself a watchmaker or one like Porsche Design. I would agree with you there, Watch Monkey. Okay, hey Thomas, what's up? Porsche Design Ofrinas are quite nice. Pilot watches are worn by Tom Cruise and Top Gun. Oh, that's what I want. But some of their Porsche design watches look a bit too wannabe futuristic. Yeah. I tell you, a watch company that has always had a futuristic look to it is Movado, but I've never wanted a Movado for some reason. But they seem like nice watches. Glashütte double swan neck and 3/4 plate in rotor is amazing. Yeah, Junior, that's a good point. They're starting to. Here's sort of some of the other watches I think that are coming to fore, so to speak. Uh, the French watch company that we talked about, Picaner, I believe, something it's they make their own movements. They have, well, really 2.5 movements. They have one that is hand wound, and then the automatic version of it is the second one, and they just came out with a third one, a third movement. So you got a watch company with its 3 in-house movements. You're talking, that's pretty good. A lot of them will have one movement and sort of a base movement for themselves, and they'll build on that. So there are some companies like that, and I think other companies like Hermes. But the trouble with Hermes and Van Cleef and Arpels, they charge a lot of money. They spend a lot of money. When Hermes went and bought 25% of Vaucher, I mean, basically they were buying into quality watchmaking. Other ones who tried to palm off. I tell you, a watch company I've mentioned a few times, we really haven't talked about it, and don't go out and buy one because I'm thinking about it, is Chaumet. Chaumet is another one of those famous watch companies, and at one time they they owned Breguet. Trouble, they had to go to jail over some kind of flim flam in economics that they did. The two brothers, the Chaumet brothers. But those watches, they have, if for a formal watch, if you don't go to a lot of formal things, but you want a formal watch, those would be great. They're black. They're shaped like there's a famous cushion shaped diamond that was from Chaumet, and that's just what their designs are, and they're really good prices. I think most of them have ETA movements in them. The one that I like has an ETA, but then it has a mechanism by Agenor, which is, so those are some of the ones that are around, but most people take one look at them and it's like, well, it's not a sports watch. It's a very formal watch, but something. MB&F, yeah, MB&F, they make great watches. I mean, MB&F I'd like to see more and more of those. Yeah. Clyde, you're right about the Harry Winston and MB&F. They have put together, they bring in really great people and put together cool watches. The problem with Movado is that they've been in the shadow of their museum watch design for too long. It's even worse than AP and Royal Oak. You're probably right about that. Okay, it was one of the idiots that bought that watch in 2000. It's not that bad. It's like, you want to look like, I don't know. To me, Movado's is, you could wear a Movado to a very formal affair and it would fit in very well. Okay, frying pan time. I'm getting it. Now you guys just use emojis. Okay. Well, listen, guys. I don't know if this was, I use this more for venting than anything else, but I do appreciate your comments and stuff. We'll be back at 4:00 New York time today. If you want to continue on this sort of I don't want it to be a hand-wringing thing so much as I want to. Well, let's figure out something else we can do. Until then, take care, and if not, I'll see you next week.